Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of Roscosmos Soyuz MS-26 mission launch, also known as ISS 72S from Baikonur Site 31-6. We are awaiting for a Soyuz 2.1A liftoff at 12:23 p.m. Eastern Time, 9:23 p.m. Baikonur time, which corresponds to 16:23 UTC on September 11th. Today's mission will be launching 3 ISS crew to join Expedition 71-72. The crew consists of Roscosmos cosmonaut Aleksey Ovchinin as commander on his third space flight, excluding one abort flight. Commander Ivan Vagner on his third space flight as flight engineer on his second space flight. And one of our favorite, flight engineer NASA astronaut Donald Pettit on his fourth space flight. We hope you all are doing fine and excited about the upcoming launch. We are witnessing 2 human space flights in 2 consecutive days. This is really thrilling. Hello, my name is Dipto Moitra, performing the commentary for today's mission launch. Before moving on to the launch coverage, firstly, on behalf of AstroYonder team, we express our heartfelt gratitude to everyone for being a part of today's launch. We really appreciate you being here. A big thanks to our amazing YouTube community for being here today as we provide detailed coverage of space launches, complete with extensive stats and thorough insights. Now I guess it's time for the webcast to begin. So let's jump to it.
Лифты поднимутся наверх. Первые садятся в корабль. Это борт-инженер. Они слева и справа от командира экипажа Алексея Овчинина. Он последний залезает в корабль. После этого закрывается люк.
Well, this is
и
in Russian,
начинается
so
двухчасовая предстартовая подготовка. Но будет время у экипажа расслабиться и немного
let's talk a little bit
послушать свои
about
любимые композиции. А мы поедем
the mission
сейчас на
details from
наблюдательный
our
пункт.
side. The International Space Station resident remain busy as they prepare for the arrival of 3 new crewmates who are set to lift off from Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan today. Following launch, the trio will take a short ride of to orbit, approximately 3-hour trajectory to the station, and will dock at 3:33 p.m. Eastern Daytime to the Razvet module before opening the hatches and joining the Expedition 71 crew in orbit, where they will spend approximately 6 months living and working in space. Now that question which I asked on the poll in the chat, that what Razvet means, actually it means the first light, dawn or sunrise in Russian. So the Soyuz MS-26 mission will launch a crew of 3, as we know, to low Earth orbit with an inclination of 51.66 degrees, a common angle for missions to the International Space Station due to its optimal ground coverage and accessibility. Today, the Soyuz 2.1A, the medium lift launch vehicle, will be having its 78th overall launch to date and the 5th mission of the year. We are super excited bringing you the coverage of Roscosmos' second human space flight to the ISS of this year. Previously, we saw the launch of MS-25 on 23rd of March this year, and today's mission launch marks the 8th launch of Roscosmos, 9th launch of Soyuz 2 rocket as of this year, and 10th orbital launch of Russia. Recently, prior to today's launch, a Soyuz 2.1A launched Progress MS-28, identified by NASA as ISS Progress 89, a cargo spacecraft to the International Space Station from Baikonur Site 31-6 on 15th August 2024 at 3:20 UTC, replacing the Progress MS-26. It was the 181st flight of a Progress spacecraft. Now today's launch marks the 165th orbital launch attempt of this year globally. Right now I'm not just giving the audio to the stream because it's in Russian. I hope that most of the people won't be understanding. We will be switching to the NASA stream in just 9 minutes from now. So meanwhile, let's discuss about the launch profile of Soyuz MS-26. So the Soyuz 2.1A rocket carrying the MS-26 spacecraft, carrying a crew of 3, which is set to lift off from pad 6 of Site 31 at Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan today, that is on September 11th at 12:23 p.m. Eastern Time, 9:23 p.m. Baikonur time, which corresponds to 16:23 UTC. Propelled by simultaneous thrust of 4 engines of the first stage and the single engine of the second stage, the vehicle will head almost exactly east to align its ascent trajectory with an orbital plane inclined 51.6 degrees towards the equator. Now here we have Simon Haga joining us. Although he doesn't like us to communicate him on voice, so let me just greet him. And thanks joining Marcos on Antonio. Hope you will be enjoying the stream. Also, we wish that every one of you will be enjoying the stream today. One of our moderator is missing here. If he would have been here, he would have been made all these Russian talks in English to translate, as he knows Russian. Hopefully he will be joining us in some minute. If not, then I am there, although I don't know Russian. So anyways, let's continue with the flight profile which I was discussing. So after aligning east to the ascent trajectory with an orbital plane inclined at 51.6 degrees towards the equator, the Soyuz 2.1A rocket, slightly less than 2 minutes into the flight at t plus 1 minute and 53 seconds at an altitude of around 55 kilometers and a velocity of 1.75 kilometers per second, the ship's main emergency escape rocket will be jettisoned, immediately followed by the separation of the first stage at t plus 1 minute and 57 seconds. The emergency escape rocket and 4 boosters of the first stage will then touch down around 330 to 350 kilometers downrange from the launch site, respectively. Around 30 seconds after the first stage separation, as the vehicle leaves the dense atmosphere at an altitude of 79 kilometers and a velocity of 2.2 kilometers per second, the payload fairing protecting the spacecraft will split into 2 halves and fall away at t plus 2 minutes and 33 seconds into the flight. These fairing halves are projected to fall 500 kilometers downrange from the launch site, that is from Baikonur Cosmodrome. In the meantime, the second core stage of the rocket will continue firing until 4 minutes and 48 seconds into the flight. Moments before the second stage will complete its work, the 4-chamber engine of the third stage will ignite, firing through the lattice structure connecting the 2 stages. And moments after the separation of the core booster at an altitude of 157 kilometers and a velocity of 3.8 kilometers per second at t plus 4 minutes and 47 seconds, the AFT skirt of the third stage will split into 3 segments and separate as well at 3 t plus 4 minutes and 56 seconds. The second stage booster and the sections of the AFT skirt will touch down the ground around 1550 and 1570 kilometers downrange from the launch site of Baikonur Cosmodrome. Next 8 minutes and 49 seconds, the third stage will make it to climb to the orbit, followed by the propulsion system of the third stage cutoff at t plus 8 minutes and 45 seconds, releasing Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft into a 200 by 242 kilometers initial orbit at t plus 8 minutes and 49 seconds after liftoff. I know guys, it's a little bit not good that we are not playing the audio because it's in Russian, that's why I'm not playing them. Let the NASA stream to begin. I will have the audio then. Just 2 minutes to go. And about the rendezvous and docking, Progress MS-26 is scheduled to automatically dock at the Razvednadir module of the Russian segment of the ISS on September 11th, that is of today, at 3:33 p.m. Eastern Time, 1933 UTC, joining Expedition 71 aboard the ISS. The hatch opening is scheduled at 5:50 p.m. Eastern Daytime on September 11th and midnight at 12:50 Moscow time on September 12th. Now, while the stream will be going on, we will be talking more about the crew and their accomplishments to date. In just few seconds from now, the NASA stream will be beginning so that you can have the English translation of all these things going on. Also, in between, we will be having our things to say, so please have a little patience. We promise that we won't disappoint you with our research on this mission launch. Well, it's time for the webcast to begin. And right now we are seeing those past launches of today's MS-26 commander, Aleksey Ovchinin. I don't know whether I'm pronouncing the name correctly. These Russian names are hard to pronounce, so please pardon me. So just a second, let me just switch to the NASA stream.
NOAA reports that all systems are go for launch with no issues being worked as the countdown enters its final phase. Here in Mission Control Houston, the team is monitoring the Expedition 71 crew and space station systems on the International Space Station and is preparing to support the arrival of the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft later today. The station population will increase temporarily from 9 to 12 people with the addition of NASA astronaut Donald Pettit and his Roscosmos crewmates, Soyuz Commander Aleksey Ovchinin and flight engineer Ivan Vagner. The crew is all set to begin a flight of just over 3 hours in duration to the International Space Station, with docking scheduled for 2:33 p.m. Central Time, 3:33 p.m. Eastern Time later today, to the Roscosmos module of the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. Once the hatches are open between the newly arrived Soyuz and the International Space Station, Pettit, Ovchinin, and Vagner will be greeted by Station Commander Oleg Kononenko and his crewmates Roscosmos Cosmonauts Nikolai Chub and Alexander Gurbenkin, along with NASA astronauts Tracy Dyson, Matt Dominic, Michael Barrett, Jeanette Epps, Sonny Williams, and Butch Wilmore. Kononenko, Chub, and Dyson will depart in the Soyuz MS-25 spacecraft on September 23rd, heading for a parachute-assisted landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan. Dyson will have spent 6 months in space on this, her third flight into space, while Kononenko and Chub will come home after completing a full year on orbit. Pettit will remain on board the space station through March of next year, returning home at that time with Ovchinin and Vagner on Soyuz MS-26. Kononenko, who is the chief of the Cosmonaut Corps, has already spent more days in space than any other human and recently passed 1,000 days in space on June 4th on this, his fifth space flight. At the time of landing, Kononenko and Chub will have spent 374 days in space, and for Kononenko, a total of 1,111 days in space. Pettit's launch today mirrors that of Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov, who is scheduled to launch to the International Space Station as part of the SpaceX Crew 9 Dragon later this month. This is providing a reciprocal crew exchange capability to maintain safe and continuous space station operations. Here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, the Orbit 2 team of flight controllers is currently on deck. They completed a handover period just a few hours ago, And the team here in Houston is being led by Flight Director Judd Freeling, who you can see in the middle of your screen, and to his right is Capcom or Capsule Communicator Luca Parmentano.
Well, it is worth mentioning that upon reaching the ISS, the crew of today's mission, that is MS-26, they will be joining the rest of the crew member from the ISS, and they will be having a full house of 12 astronauts and cosmonaut on board the ISS. And just for a second, although there is nothing to see much interesting right now, just want to inform you about the backup crew. Sergei Reznov is the commander, as in the backup crew. Aleksey Zubritsky is as a pilot, and Johnny Kim as flight engineer. They will be flying, if there will be no issue for today, they will be flying as MS-27 in March of 2025.
The countdown continues to proceed on schedule with no issues being reported from the engineers at the blockhouse in Baikonur. Coming up in just over 30 minutes, about 32 minutes from now, we will also have a go, no-go poll for launch.
Well, those of who doesn't knows about the Soyuz launch profile, let me just tell you in a quick jiffy. Approximately T minus 78 hours and up to T minus 1 hour and 1 minute, the thermal conditioning of the spacecraft undergoes. From T minus 4 hour 11 minutes to T minus 3 minutes and 3 hour and 46 minutes, fueling of the launch vehicle will take place, which already we crossed that time. At T minus 2 minutes and 46 seconds, 2 hours and 46 minutes, the crew, on your screen you can see the MS-26 crew will arrive at the launch facility. Between 2 hours and 41 minutes to 2 hours 16 minutes, the crew will board the spacecraft. So already the crew has boarded the spacecraft, and fueling of the Soyuz 2.1A launch vehicle is completed. Then in between T minus 1 minute, 1 hour to 30 minutes to 30 minutes from the liftoff, checks of the spacecraft onboard system will done by both the crew and the ground support team. Between T minus 45 minutes to T minus 33 minutes, retraction of the access gantry will take place. In the next T minus 30 minutes to 15 minutes, system configures to launch readiness with SAS emergency escape system being armed. At T minus 25 minutes, powering up of the emergency escape system will take place. Right now you can see the view inside the Soyuz spacecraft. I guess that is Donald on the corner, and in between is the commander Aleksey. Sergei is the backup commander, and we are not getting any views of Ivan Vagner here. So at T minus 10 minutes, the launch vehicle flight control system will be ready for the flight. At T minus 6 minutes, issuing of the pre-launch command will take place. T minus 5 minutes to go. Commander's control active and helmets and the visors will be closed. and the physical launch key will be inserted for the launch. In the final T0, we will have liftoff of the Soyuz MS-26 mission to the ISS. Although I just made you to have a idea about the pre-launch timeline, but in fact there are more steps in between them which undergoes, so I'm not just saying them.
What got me interested in science? I think my backyard back in Silverton, Oregon, you walk outside and you see Earth. Seeing things, you see a row of ants walking down the sidewalk. It's like, whoa, look at that. Why are they walking in a line? What happens if one of them gets lost? Where are they going? It's telling you a story, and the answers aren't in the back of the story. You have to figure things out yourself. So I got interested in science because of Earth. We conduct science on the International Space Station because it is an environment where human beings are not innately meant to be. And because of that, you can learn things about human physiology. You can learn things about physics and chemistry that are impossible to learn on Earth. There are two main categories of science. You have the programmatic science. This is well-planned, well-thought-out, peer-reviewed, and uplinked to station with the supplies needed. And then you have what I call science of opportunity. And this is science that comes to mind while you are there, simply because you are there and you can do it because you can. Scientific disciplines that I've dabbled in on the International Space Station: fluid physics, classic physics, chemistry, biology, plant growth, Earth observations that are unique from an orbital environment. A number of my science of opportunity investigations have resulted in peer-reviewed scientific papers. One is growing sodium chloride crystals. And a salt shaker won't work in weightlessness, right? It'll be a mess. So the NASA food people have a little squeeze bottle of a saturated solution of sodium chloride, and you can put that on your food if you want to add salt. And I was using this saturated solution of sodium chloride to do aqueous phase crystal growth of sodium chloride crystals, and there were a number of fascinating observations that could be made by doing this in weightlessness, and resulted in these 3 publications. The particle agglomeration. I had bags of various kinds of powder. You've got powdered milk, and you've got freeze-dried coffee in a bag. And instead of putting water in it, you can blow the bag up and you can look at it and you can see what happens when you shake it up. And I was playing with all these bags, and in every case, these particles, millimeter size, just floating around, would rapidly, in tens of seconds, form centimeter size clumps. And I thought, wow, isn't that cool? All these different particles. I filmed it, and Stan Love, who's an astronaut in the office, who is a planetary geologist by training, he saw that, and he said that this has implications to planet formation. How you go from something that's 1 millimeter to something the size of your fist has not been really understood. And these simple videos that I downlinked helped scientists understand what that process is. And it doesn't get any better than that when casual observations, simply because you are there and you can, calling it science of opportunity, leads to opening up a whole new level of investigation. We had some educational demonstrations with Legos, making various things for student downlink. And after that was all done, I said, hey, can I use the Legos to make something that I'd like to make? And sure, go ahead, use the Legos. And I used the Legos to make a Van de Graaff generator. And this allowed me to have a source of static electric voltage, and I did a lot of observations with water and other solutions, making these Taylor cones in the weightless environment. And then one time I was giving a presentation to university level students, and we started talking, and we had this collaboration, and using my data with graduate students, published a paper in Phys Rev Letters. And the neatest aspect about this paper is in the experimental section, it says roller and belt Van de Graaff generator was made on space station out of Legos. And it's like, wow, Phys Rev Letters, peer-reviewed scientific publication, and part of the data came from a piece of equipment that was made from Legos. That's science of opportunity. It's inevitable when you have a laboratory, whether it's on Earth or in space or on the moon, there will be science of opportunity because of the people that are doing research. They will have other ideas, and they will see things simply because they are there and they can, and they'll mess around a little bit, and maybe most of that won't go anywhere, but every once in a while there'll be one of those that turn into the next generation of programmatic science. I'm Don Pettit. I'm a NASA astronaut.
Well, he is a man of science, absolutely. I would really encourage all of you to follow him on X so that you can have those experiments videos to see. He is regularly posting them there. Also, Donald is the most experienced among the trio launching today. Aged 69 years, he is the NASA's oldest active astronaut. Donald is best known for his orbital astrophotography and in-space inventions such as Zero-G coffee mug, which received the first ever patent for an object invented in space. He also enjoys conducting scientific demonstrations in microgravity, as you just saw now, often referred to as Saturday Morning Science. That's the name of a series he is having. And one of his most beautiful picture ever taken is the lightning bugs, a viral star trail taken by Donald in back 2012. Actually, that picture is a long exposure picture, so that those star trails in the background with the Earth, it was really fascinating and amazing to see. An astrophotographer, Donald captured thousands of unique star trails and photographic data sets, which are regularly shared online. So for that only I said you to go and follow him on X. And this one which I'm talking about, titled Lightning Bugs, it went viral on the internet. Previously, he was a junior advisor to the Synthesis Committee of the Space Exploration Initiative on its May 1991 report, America at the Threshold, recommending plans for a human mission to Mars. Donald's first space mission was as a mission specialist on STS-113, and an Expedition 6 flight engineer. Also, there he served as a role of NASA science officer aboard the ISS in 2002 to 2003. During his 6-month stay aboard the space station, he performed 2 EVAs to help install external scientific equipment, and during his free time aboard the ISS, he conducted demonstrations showing how fluid reacts in an extremely low gravity environment in a series he called Saturday Morning Series, which I was talking about. The Expedition 6 mission was extended by about 2 months, I guess, following the loss of Space Shuttle Columbia in February 2003.
Soyuz spacecraft inside a protective shroud at the top and the 3-stage Soyuz 2.1A booster below. The first stage has 4 liquid engines strapped to the side of the core vehicle. Each will burn for 1 minute and 58 seconds before they drop away. The core engine of the first stage also serves as the second stage and continues to burn until 4 minutes and 57 seconds into the flight. The third stage has a single engine that will ignite before the separation of the second stage, helping to push it away safely. It will burn until the 8 minutes and 46 seconds mark of the flight, and at that point the Soyuz spacecraft will separate from the third stage, having arrived at its preliminary orbit.
A live view of Soyuz 2.1A booster standing at the launch pad at Site 31 at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in the Central Asian desert. We are just over 47 minutes away from launch and ticking backwards. Today's launch is again scheduled for 11:23 a.m. Central Time, 9:23 p.m. in Baikonur, to send NASA astronaut Donald Pettit and his Roscosmos crewmates Aleksey, Ovchinin, and Ivan Vagner to the International Space Station. Atop the Soyuz 2.1A booster and strapped into their seats in the descent module of the Soyuz, the center section of the 3-section Soyuz capsule, are NASA astronaut Donald Pettit and Roscosmos cosmonauts Aleksey Ovchinin and Ivan Vagner. The 3 sections of the Soyuz spacecraft are familiar to those who have watched previous missions to the International Space Station. Here's a look at this Russian vehicle.
The whole Soyuz spacecraft is 24.5 feet long with an overall volume of 301 cubic feet and comprised of 3 modules. The descent module, situated in the middle of the Soyuz vehicle, contains customized seats for the crew members during launch, entry, and landing, and contains all the controls and displays necessary for the flight. It also houses life support systems, batteries for the re-entry and landing, and the parachute and soft landing rocket engines that slow the Soyuz just before touchdown as the spacecraft lands in Kazakhstan. There are 8 hydrogen peroxide thrusters located on the module, which are used to control the spacecraft's orientation, or attitude, during the descent until parachute deployment. The descent module also contains a guidance, navigation, and control system used to maneuver the vehicle during the descent phase of the mission. This descent module is 7.3 feet long with a diameter of 7.1 feet and a habitable volume of 124 cubic feet. It is the only portion of the Soyuz that survives the return to Earth. The orbital module at the top is 9.8 feet long. It connects to the descent module via a pressurized hatch. This is where the crew has a small amount of room to move around following launch during the flight to the space station. It has a docking mechanism, hatch, and rendezvous antennas located at the front end. The docking mechanism is used to dock with the space station, and the hatch allows entry into the orbiting complex. The rendezvous antennas are used by the automated docking system, which uses radar, to maneuver toward the station for docking. There is also a forward-looking window in the module that the crew can use to take manual measurements of distance and closing speed with a laser rangefinder in the event of failure of the rendezvous radar system. The propulsion module houses the oxygen storage tanks, the main engine, and the attitude control thrusters, avionics, and communication and control equipment. The propulsion portion of this module handles all orbital maneuvers, including those needed for the rendezvous with the space station and the deorbit burn at the end of the spacecraft's mission. Before they are deployed, the 2 solar arrays are folded against the body of the propulsion module, which, along with the orbital module, separates from the descent module after the deorbit burn. The solar panels span almost 35 feet. The entire spacecraft serves not only as a crew transport vehicle to and from the space station, but also as an emergency return vehicle in the unlikely event the crew needs to leave the station unexpectedly.
Retract service towers to horizontal
Again, you are
position.
seeing a live view of the Soyuz booster with its Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft atop at the launch pad at Site 31 in Kazakhstan. We are now about 44 minutes away from today's launch. Again, today's launch is scheduled for 11:23 a.m. Central Time, 12:23 p.m. Eastern Time, and 9:23 p.m. in Baikonur. The final moments of the launch countdown will include several important milestones. At about T-7 minutes, the pre-launch operations will be complete, and at this point in the countdown, the Soyuz booster will be ready for launch. About a minute later, at T-6 minutes, the physical launch key will be inserted into the launch bunker to transition the launch sequence into automatic mode. About 30 seconds later, at T-5.5 minutes, launch control will report that the range in Baikonur is clear and that the Soyuz rocket is ready to begin its journey.
Right now you can see the gantry getting retracted away from the Soyuz 2.1A rocket. And using this gantry only, the crew and the ground support team access the Soyuz spacecraft. Actually, typically it takes around 5 minutes to it happen, but yes, of course it is, I'm saying about the time when it is completely retracted. Well, we were talking about Donald and his spectacular works about the ISS. So there in about the ISS, he built a barn door tracker, which using spare parts he found on the ISS during Expedition 6. That device actually helps counter the station's movement relative to Earth's surface, allowing him to capture clearer, high-resolution images of the city lights at night. In November 2008, Donald also came up with the zero-G coffee cup, which uses the wetting angle to guide liquid along a crease, eliminating the need for a straw to drink the coffee aboard the ISS. His invention was featured in May 2009, an issue of National Geographic, where he discussed how the cup's design relates to the wetting angle of different materials. And that cup, that coffee, zero-G coffee cup, became the first object invented in space to receive a patent. It is really worth mentioning that with 3 space flight under his belt, he made significant advancement in technology and demonstrations for human exploration. As mentioned before, he served as a science officer for Expedition 6 in 2003. he operated the robotic arm for the STS-126 Space Shuttle Endeavour mission in 2008 and was a flight engineer for Expedition 3031 in 2012. He spent 369 days, 16 hours, and 41 minutes of time in space, which is less of about 5 days compared to Aleksey, and having EVA time of 13 hours, 17 minutes, with a total of 2 EVAs. Would like to welcome Confession at 3 a.m., one of our moderator here. But this moderator of us doesn't know Russian, so don't expect that translation which I was mentioning about. Although we don't need any more translation, we are here in the NASA stream, we can hear it in English. So welcome Confession at 3 a.m. Thanks for tuning in. And well, the meaning of Razvet is actually the first light, sunrise or dawn, you can say, in Russian. Now enjoy the stream. Hope we can give our best to you and meet your expectations. Also, Donald has some milestones which will be remembered forever. On May 25th of 2012, Donald and Kuipers operated the Canadarm2 to grapple the first SpaceX Dragon 1 and to berth it to the Harmony module of the ISS. This marked the first time a private spacecraft had ever rendezvoused with the ISS, and the Dragon capsule was carrying supplies for the ISS, as we know that, and the successful capture demonstrated the feasibility of using privately developed spacecraft to supply the station. Donald was the first to enter the uncrewed supply ship on May 26th, just a day later, making him the first astronaut in the history of space exploration to successfully enter a commercially built and operated spacecraft in orbit. During the capture, he was quoted saying, "Houston Station, we got us a dragon by the tail." So during his Expedition 6 mission, that time the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster happened in February 2003. So immediately the grounding of the Space Shuttle fleet happened, so he couldn't came back using a shuttle. Instead of returning on a shuttle, the whole crew of the Expedition 6 had to return in a Russian Soyuz capsule. That was the first time American astronauts had launched on the space shuttle and landed in a Soyuz. Donald was a mission specialist on his second space flight aboard Space Shuttle Endeavour on the STS-126 mission to deliver equipments and supplies to the ISS, where he performed experiments on board ISS related to the clumping of solid particles in microgravity apart from his designated daily task of the mission. Some of the glimpses of those experiments he performed we got to see. and most recently on his third space flight on December 21, 2011. That is the time I was talking about when he grappled the first SpaceX Dragon spacecraft. He was a part of Expedition 3031 crew. He and his fellow crew members, out of that Oleg Konyanko and Andrei Kuipers, arrived at the ISS on December 23 of 2011. And again, among his off-duty, he did some video demonstration on the space station about water and thin film and the Maragoni Convention. Also on the STS-1 to 6 mission, Donald helped expand the space station's living quarters and installed a regenerative life support system to recycle potable means which we can drink water from urine. So no matter he had any other works, designated works on the space station, among his free time there, he always used to do some experiment, and we hope that this time also we will get to see some of his innovative ideas and experiments to witness. They will be staying there for 6 months, so he will be getting enough time. Right now you can see on your screen the MS-25 return crew on the crew members, Tracy Dyson, Oleg Konyanko and Nikolai Chup to come back. And upon their departure, the Expedition 72 will start aboard the ISS. Now let's talk about a little bit about today's commander here for today's MS-26 mission, Aleksey Ovchinin, commander of today's mission, who is a Russian Air Force major and cosmonaut who got selected as a cosmonaut back in 2006. Ovchinin made his first space flight in 2016 and was assigned as commander of Soyuz MS-10 in 2018. But there is a catch, as I mentioned before. A space flight on which he got aborted. So Ovchinin launched to space on his first flight as a commander of Soyuz TMA-20M mission, which launched on 18 March 2016. It was a part of Expedition 47 and 48. He returned to Earth with his crewmates on 7 September 2016 after spending 172 days on orbit. Again, we are getting some views from the Soyuz spacecraft. Aleksey doing something, I guess, on his tablets or maybe on the console. And there you can see on the corner Donald sitting with his hands close to each other. And looking to him, it feels like he is quite excited, and I guess he is still thinking about what science he can do about the ISS. So then on the expedition 57, Aleksey and Nick Hague boarded aboard Soyuz MS-10 spacecraft on the way to the International Space Station to join Expedition 57, but the launch was aborted mid-flight due to a booster failure. The crew landed safely after a ballistic descent, that is the SAS emergency escape system, on a Soyuz rocket, and during his MS-10 flight, the Soyuz spacecraft aborted at an altitude of around 50 kilometers and reached an apogee of 93 kilometers before landing 19 minutes and 41 seconds after the launch. So if we don't count this Expedition 57, today he is on his third space flight, but if we will be counting the Expedition 57 which got aborted, that will be the fourth space flight today he is on. Here you can see on your screen the MS-26 crew leaving their stay in a residential area of around Baikonur Cosmodrome, waving hands to the public around, some happy faces and excitement, and for just behind them those three persons are the, I guess they are the backup crew for MS-26. You can see the excitement in Donald's face. Also Aleksey is a little composed, and there is Vagner, the youngest of all three here today. He is aged 39 years right now. Here are some greetings and last views from the family members of the crew members. And right now they got inside the processing building, I guess, where they prepare for the launch and they get donned in their space suit. This is typically happens around T-4 hours and 30 minutes. This is a typical time, although it varies from each launch and depending on the schedules. This is the processing building at site 254, I guess. So while you guys watch the view as the crew prepares, let's just wrap the discussion about Aleksey's accomplishments. In his last space flight, that was during the expedition 5960, he got to launch again to the ISS on March 14th of 2019, traveling on a Soyuz MS-12 mission with American astronaut Nick Hague and Christina Koch. We saw that views in the Russian stream when it was playing on. Here we didn't got to see that anymore in the NASA stream. So there the trio joined the Expedition 59 crew along with the commander Oleg Kononenko and flight engineer David St. Jacques and Annie McLean. After the departure of the Kononenko and St. Jacques and McLean on 24th of June 2019, Aleksey took command of the station for Expedition 60. So right now he spent 374 days, 19 hours, 32 minutes and 9 seconds of time in space. And he is having a EVA time of 6 hours, 1 minute with a total of 1 EVA. Lastly, today's flight engineer Ivan Vagner, who is a Russian engineer and cosmonaut who got selected as a cosmonaut back in October 2010. He is a graduate from Ballistic State Technical University in 2008. He later on started working as an engineer for RKK Energia, one of the most important company out there in Russia for their space industry. And after being selected as a cosmonaut, he graduated basic space flight training back in 2012. His maiden space flight was in April 2020 as a flight engineer on Soyuz MS-16 mission and for the Expedition 62 and 63. His dawn to space career was a little bit tricky because in January 2016 he was assigned to the crew of ISS Expedition 53 and 54, but he was removed from the flight in September 2016 due to crew cutbacks on the Russian orbital segment on the ISS caused by the delays with the launch of the Nauka laboratory module. Vagner was assigned back to the Russian flight engineer Andrei Babkin on board Soyuz MS-16, scheduled to launch on April 2020. However, in February 2020, Babkin and the spacecraft commander Nikolai Tikhonov were removed from the flight due to a temporary health conditions. Subsequently, Vagner and Anatoly Ovchinin, who was the backup crew, were moved forward on the prime crew. And following that Expedition 62, following the arrival of the Soyuz MS-16, during the Expedition 63, Vagner and his 2 crewmates were scheduled to be on board the ISS for the arrival of a number of visiting crewed vehicles. This is also a milestone in his career and also in the space exploration. The Expedition 63 crew welcomed the SpaceX Crew Dragon Demo 2 mission for a stay on board the station on 31st May of 2020. This space flight marked the first crewed test flight of SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft and the first crewed orbital spacecraft to launch from US soil since the STS-135 mission. The final flight of the Space Shuttle program, which was back in 2011. The mission was crewed by NASA astronaut Doug Hurley and Bob Bacon. As we know that SpaceX renamed not renamed, named their recovery vessel inspired by their names as because they launched the first crew ever on the Dragon. So Doug Hurley and Bob Bacon remained on board the ISS for 2 months, and Expedition 63 was joined by Russian cosmonaut Sergei Ryzhkov and Sergei Kurtskizkov, as well as NASA astronaut Kathleen Rubins, who launched aboard Soyuz MS-17 on 14th of October back in 2020. Wagner was previously trained as a backup Soyuz MS-25 commander, and that mission launched Oleg Novitsky, Marina Vasilevskaya of Belarus, who she was the first cosmonaut to be launched on behalf of Belarus Space Agency, accompanied with NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson. And in 2022, Wagner was awarded with the title Hero of the Russian Federation in Russia. He spent 195 days, 18 hours and 49 minutes of time in space. But unfortunately, he is not having any EVA yet performed. Hopefully this time he will be getting a chance to have a milestone in his career, to have an EVA. And replying to confession at 3 AM, I just mentioned about Marina. And it's about 17 minutes from liftoff right now.
54 Integration Building.
Godspeed. Dear Chairman of the State Commission, the crew of Soyuz MS-26 is ready for flight.
As they left the Site 254 Integration Building, Ovchinin, the Soyuz commander, reported that he and his crewmates were ready to proceed to the launch pad.
Good luck to you guys. Russia.
The trio then boarded their bus at about 7:42 a.m. Central Time, 5:42 p.m. in Baikonur for the ride to the launch site 31, and that trip took almost 1 hour to complete at the desolate launch site.
They are so great. I don't see, Mom.
In between those heavy voice which you are hearing, these are just translation of the Russian wordings of the crowd around there.
After arriving at the launch pad, the crew departed their bus and then climbed a few stairs and waved goodbye to well-wishers before entering the elevator for the ride to the top of the Soyuz rocket to board their spacecraft, the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft, which they have now been aboard for about the past 2 hours. And you can see NASA astronaut Don Pettit there at the bottom of the stairs.
Losha, good luck.
After waving goodbye to some well-wishers, they then entered the elevator for their ride to the top of the Soyuz rocket, where they then boarded their spacecraft, the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft, which they have now been aboard for about 2 hours. And there you now see a live view of the Soyuz 2.1A booster with the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft atop. And we are about 13 minutes away from today's launch. Today's launch will send NASA astronaut Don Pettit and his Roscosmos crewmates Aleksey, Ovchinin, and Vagner into a short 2-orbit journey to reach the International Space Station. Docking today is scheduled for 2:33 p.m. Central, 3:30 p.m. Eastern.
Now, we are T minus 12 minutes and a half from the liftoff. Just let me quickly brief down the overall Soyuz MS-26 mission, and after that you can hear the stream. The Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft, which is designated to transport 3 members of the expedition 71 and 72 to the ISS, was initially set to carry veteran Roscosmos cosmonaut Aleksey, Ovchinin, and Vagner. On March 27th of this year, NASA officially announced that veteran astronaut Donald Pettit, that is Donald Pettit, would also join Soyuz MS-26 as part of Expedition 71 and 72. After undergoing post-production tests in Korolev in the fall of 2023, Soyuz MS-26 was shipped to Baikonur Cosmodrome on December 18, 2023 and unloaded at Site 254 a week later on December 25th. The mission's launch vehicle arrived at Tyrantum, I guess I'm pronouncing it right, Tyrantum train station along with components for the Progress MS-29 mission on June 25th of this year. Just within 24 hours, the RKK Energia team at Site 254 began processing Soyuz MS-26 for launch. As mentioned before, previously, Vagner, the flight engineer of today's MS-26 mission, used to work at RKK Energia as an engineer there. On August 26th of this year, both the primary and backup crews arrived at the Baikonur for familiarization training inside the flight-ready Soyuz MS-26, which took place on August 28 in the spacecraft processing building at Site 254. As part of the training, the crew donned so-called KV-2 pressure suits, and by September 1st of this year, Soyuz MS-26 was attached to its launch vehicle adapter, weighed and prepared for the final cargo load. It was then enclosed in its payload fairing assembly and rotated to a vertical position for final test. On September 5th of this year, the primary and backup crews took turn entering the launch-configured Soyuz MS-26 to check the placement of the cargo in the re-entry and habitation modules and test key systems in simulation mode. On the very same day, RKK Energia specialist disconnected the spacecraft from diagnostic equipment to prepare it for the transfer to the launch vehicle assembly building at Site 31, where it was integrated with its Soyuz 2.1A rocket on September 6th. The State Commission then approved the rollout of the spacecraft to the launch pad at Site 31 on September 8th of this year, which occurred in the early morning.
ISS is ready, yes.
Now let's hear the callouts as we are nearing to the liftoff. We are right now 8 minutes and a half from liftoff.
We are now just under 8.5 minutes away from today's launch of the Soyuz 2.1A booster with the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft atop, carrying NASA astronaut Donald Pettit and his Roscosmos crewmates Aleksey Ovchinin and Vagner to the International Space Station.
Those of you who are joining us live today, as of now, we tried our best to give you all the relevant details related to the Soyuz MS-26 mission, which are not shared by any of the stream out there on the platform. So we do expect that if we did our best, if you felt so, then please consider giving this video a like so that it can reach a wide range of space enthusiasts like you, and to build a space fan community. So we would be super grateful for you joining us and to liking the stream.
Telemetry will be received from the rocket.
Yeah, copy you. Everything is in order on board. We're ready for launch.
I guess we got the go for launch.
Boardwalk 1 and Boardwalk 2 on video camera 1.
And you are hearing some conversations between the crew currently strapped inside that Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft, reporting that they are ready for launch. And we are at just under 6.5 minutes away from today's launch. Again, we had that readiness confirmed about 30 seconds ago at T-minus 7 minutes, and those pre-launch operations are now complete. The Soyuz booster is now ready for launch, and telemetry has been received from the rocket, indicating that all primary and backup systems are set to support today's liftoff. Launch today is precisely timed for the moment where the Earth's rotation will place the Baikonur Cosmodrome in the plane or corridor of the orbit of the space station, which is inclined at 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator. And we just heard confirmation that the launch key has been inserted at the launch bunker. It is a real key, a physical key, that transitions the launch sequence into automatic mode. In just a few seconds, launch control should report that the range at Baikonur is clear and that the Soyuz rocket will be ready to begin its journey. We are just under 5.5 minutes away from today's launch.
Nearly at T-minus 4 minutes, the combustion chamber nitrogen purge will start. And T-minus 90 seconds, ground propellant feed will be terminated.
We are about 5 minutes and 5 seconds away from today's launch. In just a few seconds, the onboard systems will be switched to onboard control, and the commander's cockpit displays and controls will be activated. And then the crew members will begin to close their helmets, which puts them on suit oxygen.
In about T-minus 60 seconds, vehicle will be switched off to internal power, and about T-minus 35 seconds.
And we just heard confirmation that the fuel lines and other elements of the rocket engines are being purged with nitrogen to fireproof them by removing vapors of fuel and oxidizer. And you are now seeing a live look of the Soyuz 2.1A booster with the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft atop at the launch pad in Baikonur. And we are now at 4 minutes and 15 seconds away from today's launch of the Soyuz. Today's launch, again, is scheduled for 11:23 a.m. Central Time, 9:23 p.m. in Baikonur. Coming up in about a minute, this optimizes the fuel and helps to add structural support to the rocket. We are now about 3 minutes and 45 seconds away from today's launch. Everything continuing to proceed as planned with no issues being reported from the blockhouse in Baikonur.
Would like to welcome Spoonzor. Thanks for tuning in. We hope that you enjoyed the stream and we could provide you the details relevant to today's mission launch. Once again, thanks for tuning in. We are really glad to have you here. And what I was saying, that about T-minus 35 minutes, T-minus 60 seconds, the vehicle will be switched to internal power. At T-minus 35 seconds, auto sequence will start. T-minus 30 seconds, third stage ground power umbilical will separate. And T-minus 15 seconds, second umbilical tower will separate. T-minus 12 seconds, launch command will be issued. At T-minus 10 seconds, engine turbo pumps will be at flight speed. The second last in today's pre-launch profile, that is at T-minus 5 seconds, engines will be at maximum thrust, and finally at T0 we will have the liftoff. So now let's enjoy the stream. As we are getting 2 minutes away from the liftoff. You are watching a live view of the Soyuz 2.1A rocket.
In just about 30 seconds from now, the ground propellant feed will be terminated. And then shortly after that, the Soyuz will be switched to internal power. We are just under 1 minute and 45 seconds away from today's launch. Just under 1.5 minutes to go until the launch of the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft. We are at less than 1 minute and 10 seconds away from today's launch. The Soyuz will be switched to internal power shortly. And then about 30 seconds after that, the first umbilical tower will separate and we will have auto sequence start, and then the ground umbilical to the third stage will be disconnected, followed by the second umbilical tower separating with the launch command being issued. We are at 45 seconds away from today's launch and counting.
We have vehicle to internal power.
There we go, the vehicle is now switched to internal
The
power.
first umbilical tower is now separating, and the Soyuz is on internal power. We have 20 seconds until launch and counting.
We have auto sequence initiated. Onboard power. We have oxygen.
There is the engine
We now
ignition.
have engine sequence start. The second umbilical tower is now separating. The engines are at maximum
And
thrust.
liftoff.
Booster ignition now at full throttle, and we have liftoff of Pettit, Ovchinin, and Vagner, now on their way to the International Space Station as part of a 2-orbit journey. We are seeing good vehicle parameters so far.
Now the
Vehicle
Soyuz
performance is continuing to look good.
Now the Soyuz MS-26 crew is on board the Soyuz 2.1A rocket at full thrust. We are getting some amazing views. Hope we will be getting that close up of the
We are now just
exhaust of
over
the
a minute into
rocket.
today's launch.
Yaw, pitch, and roll are nominal.
We are seeing good yaw, pitch, and roll, heading downrange.
Fine and for the crew members are doing well. Copy.
We are just about a minute and 20 seconds into today's flight. The velocity is over 1,100 miles per hour. Everything continuing to proceed as planned. Just a few seconds, the escape tower will be jettisoned.
Thrusters are operating nominally.
We are about a minute and 55 seconds into today's launch. In just a few seconds, and we now see first stage separation.
We copy.
The crew members reported they are feeling well, and we are having good pitch, roll, and yaw of the vehicle. All parameters on the vehicle are normal. We are now about 2 minutes and 37 seconds into today's flight. The launch shroud will be jettisoned shortly.
We have the control of the Aero 5 display, control descent of the snow bearing.
You are now seeing a live view from the Soyuz rocket. The vehicle is stable. The Soyuz is currently traveling at a speed of about 4,700 miles an hour.
Parameters of the rocket booster, structural parameters are nominal. Copy you. Everything's fine on board. Crew members are doing well. Copy.
We are about 3 minutes and 20 seconds into today's flight, about 5 minutes left until we reach orbital insertion. We heard confirmation that the second stage thruster continues to perform well.
Copy you. Robot 1 reporting everything is fine on board and crew members are doing well. Copy.
The vehicle control system performance continues to be good. We are about 3 minutes and 50 seconds into today's flight. In about a minute, we will see the third stage begin to ignite while the second stage begins to shut down.
The second stage of the rocket will continue firing until 4 minutes and 48 seconds into the flight. And moments before the second stage will complete its work, the 4-chamber engine of the third stage will ignite, firing through the lattice structure connecting the two stages. And moments after the separation of the core booster at an altitude of 157 kilometers and a velocity of 3.8 kilometers per second at t plus 4 minutes and 47 seconds, the AFT skirt of the third stage will split into 3 segments and separate as well at t plus 4 minutes and 56 seconds. The second stage booster and the sections of the AFT skirt will touch down the ground around 1,550 and 1,570 kilometers downrange from the launch site respectively. And there we go, we got to see those 4-chamber
engine of the Soyuz third stage. This engine is providing 67,000 pounds of thrust and will burn for about 4 minutes.
Everything's fine on board. Reporting Burlak 1. Copy.
We continue to see good structural parameters on the Soyuz vehicle, and the thrust on the third stage is performing well. We are about 5 minutes and 45 seconds into today's flight. We have about 3 minutes of powered flight remaining.
Excuse me, my mic got disconnected. Sorry for that interruption. We saw the third stage to fire up, and in the next In the overall T plus 8 minutes and 49 seconds, the third stage will make it to climb the orbit, following the propulsion system of the third stage cutoff at T plus 8 minutes and 45 seconds, releasing the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft into a 243 kilometers of initial orbit at T plus 8 minutes and 49 seconds after liftoff.
Spaceflight.
Stage 3 thrusters are nominal. Burlock 1, all okay on board. Copy.
We are getting good call outs. Stage 3 is performing nominal.
We have about 2 minutes of powered flight left.
After getting into the orbit,
410 seconds, flight nominal. Burlock 1, copy.
with the thrust
Okay on
of
board,
Soyuz
copy.
2.1A rocket only, the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft
And
will
we are 7 minutes and 10 seconds into today's flight. Everything continuing to proceed as planned. Everything looking good for the ride to orbit for NASA astronaut Donald Pettit and his Roscosmos crewmates Aleksey, Ovchinin, and Vagner.
440 seconds.
after getting orbit, they will be having
Vehicle is stable.
2 orbit around.
We are now 7 minutes and 30 seconds into today's flight. The vehicle remains stable.
And nearly 3 hours to reach
The
the
velocity of the
ISS.
vehicle is now almost 13,500 miles an hour.
460 seconds. Launch vehicle parameters are nominal. Copy. Burlock 1, all okay on board. Copy.
We have less than a minute of powered flight remaining, and once the third stage delivers the Soyuz to orbit and the module is separated, a series of pre-programmed commands will be executed to prepare the Soyuz for orbital operations. These stored commands, called time-tagged commands, allow many of the Soyuz's systems to be automatically activated by onboard computers at precise times stored in those communicators.
490 seconds. Vehicle stabilization is nominal.
Shutdown of third stage is command being issued, I
We are
guess.
now 8.5 minutes into today's flight and about 15 seconds away from third stage cutoff and separation.
Yes, we are
Roll, pitch,
nearing to
and
the
yaw
third
parameters
stage
continuing to be normal.
cutoff.
590 seconds waiting for the separation.
And we now have confirmation of third stage separation. The single liquid-fueled engine has shut down and has dropped away at an altitude of about 126 miles.
So we got the separation of the Soyuz MS spacecraft. We had a flawless launch today with the Soyuz MS crew for the expedition 71 and 72 reaching the ISS. Now the Progress MS-26 is scheduled to automatically to dock at the Razvet Nadir's module of the Russian segment of the ISS today itself at 3:33 p.m. Eastern Time, 1933 UTC, joining the Expedition 71 aboard the ISS. The hatch opening is scheduled at 5:50 p.m. Eastern Daytime on September 11, that is today, and 12:50 a.m. Moscow time on September 12th. Now, before wrapping up the stream, just a quick fun fact. The first mission of the Soyuz MS spacecraft began on July 7th of 2016. The spacecraft carried a crew of 3 to the International Space Station. Now with that, we will wrap up our coverage for now. Be sure to check out our social media handle on X. You can get a link on the chat for the latest happenings in the space industry and the updates on the upcoming launches. Hope you enjoyed the stream and we could deliver the most we can. We appreciate everyone joining us for today's launch. Wishing everyone a great week ahead. Tomorrow we will be streaming the Polaris Dawn EVA, the first ever commercial spacewalk. So don't forget to tune in. The stream is there, scheduled on the channel page. So thanks for watching. This is AstroYonder Live and me, Dipto, signing off for now, and we will see you next time.